friends, hello and welcome back. Hopefully everyone's having a lovely day. So today we're going to do a little, it's kind of a brief, we won't dive too deep into it, but a brief little, as we've called it in the past years, kind of a state of the market in NHL 24, just kind of going over why certain things on the auction house cost what they do, why some things are more than others, and some things that just kind of crossed my mind so far early in this season, just regarding everything. Maybe you want to work the market to make some coins. Maybe you want to know why some of your players are selling, why some players are more than others. The collectible moment or the collectible game. Excuse me? Was that not what I wanted? That's what they're called. Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Now listen. Hear me out. That said power up icons. That'll do it. Okay, so collectible wise, a lot of these are run. There's one for, did I just see one for 23? I think that went away right quick. A lot of these are run 25k. A lot of the time you'll be able to get 25k. Sometimes they go up a little bit more, sometimes they go down a little bit less. At the end of the day, power up collectibles are so important in this game. But I do think a lot of the times, depending on what's coming out, depending on how flooded the market is, you can easily get these for 21, 22k. If you want to flip them for 25, 25 and a half, go ahead. If you just want to use them, go ahead. But I think that's pretty consistent for collectibles. I do think, it is early in the year, I do think there comes a point where they're 26, 27, and if you want to hold them long game like that, a month or two down the road, the less and less packs getting ripped, the less people play, the less they're available. But you still have people grinding this game, and you're needing them more down the road because players start costing more, but there's just not as many being thrown out there, so they do cost a little bit more. So if you want to invest longer than you can, overall though, it's something I don't think they ever drop in value. If you're just looking to hold coins somewhere, they could go up a little bit. Is moving to the gold players. Now this is an interesting one. Some of us, may be wondering if you're, I know I hear a lot of, back in the day, I remember I was just telling somebody like back in the day, man, I remember it was fun and easy just to sit in 59-minute mark and enjoy life, buying all the cheap, buying all the cheap 80 overalls and whatever a year or two ago. And that's like, everybody does it. And that's all right. Everybody's just trying to make their coins. I get it. I respect it. But looking at the gold market, we will go NHL, and just to kind of break down, starting with some of the cheap ones, we're noticing that there's a lot more of some teams than there are others. Let's just go ahead and bring this up. Got a lot of Islanders that are 79s, but 79s in general tend to go for a little bit less. Well, there are a lot of players up for 1,500 coins right now. 79 and unders in general tend to go for a little bit less because there are just so many more of them on a team. The reason the costs are what they are is A, people are trying to build collectibles so they can buy them for a K or whatever they can. They're buying them, but B, they're trying to complete team building sets. So in a team building sets, you need X amount of 70s and X amount of 80s, and every team has so many more 79 and belows than they do 80s. So it's a lot more difficult to pick up the 80 pluses. Plus the 80 pluses you can trade in for, again, you need less of them to get collectible. So if you can pay the same price for an 80 as a 79, obviously you jump for the 80, which makes less 80s available to people who are actually trying to buy them for the team building sets. So that's why we're seeing that sort of separation there. One thing we'll notice here is I'm not even going to touch that Blackhawk player that's been up for 18 seconds. There are some teams where it's like, well, I can't sell my players. They just seem to sit up forever. The Blackhawks are a perfect example of that. The Blackhawks are an example of that because sometimes you have to look at, as Nasushkin, I don't know why I thought of Red McKinnon. I was going to lose it. But a big part of this is the sets. If you look at the team building sets, again, people are always going to pay the K, pay 1,100 because they're trying to complete, fantasy sets, and so on and so forth. But if you want people to pay a higher price for your gold players, a big part of that is they need to buy them because they're trying to buy the team building sets. They're trying to buy that specific team's players. And the problem with the Blackhawks is, am I still sitting on Blackhawk players? Apparently, if you look, they have 280 pluses. They have a Seth Jones and a Taylor Hall. So you need so many 80 pluses, but there's only two available. And they're really expensive that are 80 pluses. They're 4K, 3K. So a lot of people, that drives people away and say, hey, okay, I can do any team building set I want. The only thing I'm really getting for Chicago, it's Marian Hossa, right, who's a lot slower of a skater. So it's not like a super desirable card. So a lot of people are just completely ignoring doing a Blackhawk set. So when you see sets like that where there's very few 80 pluses, and that just means, hey, people aren't doing it. And that's why we're seeing the 79s and stuff. They're so difficult to sell. As far as, the 83s, the 84s, again, we're seeing that kind of driven by sets, and we're also seeing it driven by obviously X Factor. So if a player has an X Factor, typically if it's a desirable X Factor, it's going to cost a little bit more than your other 83s, your other 84s, because people are throwing those players in to get their X Factor upgraded. But 83s, I believe 83s, I mean, a lot of this is, it'll fluctuate a little bit, but 83s, what I've been at is saying, hey, 3K is a great buy for an 83. Can you flip it? Maybe not necessarily, but I've been scooping them up for fantasy collectibles. I didn't get that in time. That's unfortunate, because the way I'm mathing it is, yeah, there's a lot of for 3,400. But if you can get anything under 3K, 2,500 and sell it, you probably sell it for 32 or so. Let's give it a look. Yeah, about 33. But the way I've been mathing it is saying, hey, 5 of these for one fantasy collectible, it costs you 30 players, 35. Typically they want 30K, and you can do it for 15K. So I've been all up on that. I think that's a great deal. I want to say the 84s. 84s take 5 players as well. 84s are about 8K, 75 to 8K though. And those will fluctuate as well. Again, it depends what kind of player it is. If it has an X Factor, does it have an X Factor? If it's a good card, if it's a bad card. If we mean, like, you know, typically like a Panarin. I think Panarin's an 84, right? Panarin's a little bit more desirable. He's a little bit faster. He's got a great card. You know, guys like that might go for a little bit more than a Soros or another goaltender of that nature. But just looking, like right now, the 84s are kind of cheap. And I think a good time to buy these players, really, or I mean, we're getting at that point in time. If they're 7K now, it's like, all right, that's nice, that's nice. But when we get week 2 of fantasy comes out, again, everybody's going to be buying up these 84s because they're trying to complete the sets to get the fantasy collectibles. So they're jumping all over it. And then people, again, still buying them to use them in general, because that's the difference in the 83s and 82s. I think the 84s are still players, you know, people, that's a good upgrade to a person's team. They might be saying, 82 and 83 were not a big deal. But you get those 84s, you start to get those more known players, those better players. So it does get to be more desired in that desire or in that regard as well. But if 7K, they might go down a little bit more with the packs coming out and stuff. I mean, you get it for 6K, 6,500. I think you can see them go back to 7,500, maybe close to 8K come Friday when a new set comes out or a new fantasy cards comes out. People are really trying to do the set, so on and so forth. That's typically what we see in the market, is they'll start to, prices in general start to decline the second week of an event, because, you know, week 1, it's like, oh, it's a new event. I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. All these cards are out. It's going to be great. I got to do it. You got to put all these players in. Typically, you got to trade players and you get collectibles. So people jump on that. For that first weekend, you see players start to dry up on the marketplace, and then once that first week's, you know, weekend's worn off, few days worn off, people have done what they want to do. Not as many people are buying the cards, especially late in the first week and the start of the second week. If it's not like fantasy hockey, it's a basic event, or people have kind of got what they wanted to get. You get to that point where they're just dropping in price again, and then bang, Friday comes around, new event. People are like, oh, fancy new cards, I gotta have them. Gotta have me some new cards, and they get those new cards, and we see them kind of drop or raise the prices back up again. So that's kind of the gist of what we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of sets. And this is the thing, I don't even want to make predictions on what direction these cards go anymore, because it matters so much on what EA does with the set. They come with an 86 plus overall required player set. It's like, okay, that's going to drive the 86s right back up, because, you know, typically you can expect you'll see a slow decline in player prices throughout the year. Now we will see that with everything that's not base golds. You know, like the 86s right now are like 100 and we'll bring up headliners. Headliners are a good example. Actually, they're already starting to drop quite a bit. But typically we'll see, you know, the best cards will be worth the most, but they're not going to be the best for the longest. Like an 86 feature card, they're already seeing some at 65K. It looks like 90K. Right now they're that, but you can expect them to be the same price as other 86s that are golds, probably lower. Well, yeah, probably about the same price. I would say lower, but you can trade them in as well to where they might drop down to 40K, 50K, 60K, especially when you start to see 87, 88s. Right now, they're the premier cards in a set, but they're going to slowly decline over time. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, though, that kind of wraps up what we want to talk about today. Hopefully, you guys found this video helpful. If you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comment section. We'll continue to do them. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.